My sister didn't just spill a glass of fancy red wine on my white silk dress. She looked me straight in the eyes and told the security guard that the help wasn't allowed to cry in front of the guests. I froze for a second, the cold glass of wine dripping down my chest and stomach. The red stains spread across the cream-colored silk like a tiny wildfire. My hands shook. I wanted to scream at her, I wanted to push her, I wanted to disappear. But instead, I looked past her shoulder and saw something that made my heart skip a beat. My husband's black SUV was pulling up to the valet. The sleek, shiny car looked strong and powerful, like it belonged to someone important. My stomach dropped. In exactly 1 minute, my family's entire world, my parents' perfect little world, was about to come crashing down. And I knew it. My name is Nimra Jackson. Most of my life, I was the quiet daughter. I stayed in the background. I didn't speak unless spoken to. I didn't take up space. While my older sister, Zephyrah, was praised, admired, and shown off by our parents, I was invisible. Zephyrah soaked up all the attention like a sunflower soaking up sunlight. If she smiled, the world smiled with her. If she spoke, everyone listened. I was just there like a shadow, existing but not noticed. I am a researcher. I spend my days in soil labs and greenhouses, studying plants, soil, and ways to grow food for the world. The work is quiet, slow, and very careful. It is important work, but it isn't flashy. To my parents, it was nothing to be proud of. They couldn't see that saving the planet is more important than wearing a fancy dress or winning a popularity contest. Before I tell you how I finally broke my silence, I want to ask you something. I am recording this from a small, quiet town, but I know people from all over the world can see it. If you are watching this from far away, please write in the comments where you are watching from. I read every single one. It makes me happy because it reminds me that no matter where we live, we all know what it feels like to be overlooked, ignored, or left behind sometimes. Zephyrah was the perfect child. The golden child. She married a man named Cashin, who worked at a big, powerful company called Global. Cashin drove a car that cost more than my entire college tuition. He wore watches that could feed a whole village of people. My parents, Galen and Isolde, treated him like royalty. They acted like he was the most important person in the universe. And in their eyes, my husband, Thorin, didn't even measure up. I met Thorin at a seed convention in a dusty hall in Iowa. He wore a flannel shirt and work boots, and he was talking about farming and soil and growing food in a way that made my heart race. He was smart, funny, and kind. To my family, he was just a farm guy, someone who got his hands dirty. When I brought him home, my mother didn't even offer him a chair. She asked if he remembered to wipe the dirt off his shoes before stepping on the rug. I wanted to shrink into the floor and hide. We have been married for 3 years now. In those 3 years, my family has never visited our home. They assumed we lived in a small, dirty, uncomfortable house. They didn't know that Thorin didn't just work on a farm. He owned it. He owned the land, the patents, and the supply chains that Cashin's company relied on to survive. Thorin is worth hundreds of millions of dollars, but he doesn't care about showing off. He would rather fix a tractor with his own hands than sit in a fancy office. And me. I wasn't just a lab worker. I was the chief scientist of our company. Together, Thorin and I were quiet, invisible bosses of an important business. We were like secret giants in the industry. But we kept it hidden because Thorin always said, "Nimra, if they don't love you when you're poor, they don't deserve you when you're rich." I agreed with him, but it was getting harder to stay quiet. 6 months ago, the invitations for Zephyrah and Cashin's wedding arrived. It was going to be the wedding of the century, a $200,000 fancy event at a cliffside estate. And yes, I got an invitation too. My mother wrote a note on it in her perfect handwriting. Please make sure Thorin wears a suit that doesn't smell like the outdoors. Very important people are attending. I felt my stomach twist. My parents still couldn't see that Thorin was important, that he was powerful, that he was everything they wished Cashin could be but wasn't. A month before the wedding, the cracks started to show. My dad called me, sounding frantic. He didn't ask how I was. He went straight to the problem. "Nimra, the venue says they might cancel. Cashin's money is tied up, and we are short $25,000 for the last payment for food and flowers. Do you have any savings? We'll pay you back when Cashin gets his bonus." I knew Cashin's bonus wasn't coming. I had heard from others in the industry that Global was checking all their money accounts because someone had been stealing. But my dad sounded desperate, and I thought of Zephyrah. Even though she could be cruel, she was my sister. I decided to help. I sent the money secretly, through one of our charity companies. I told the wedding place to say it was a special vendor credit, so nobody would know it was me. The next day, Zephyra bragged about it on Facebook. The universe just knows I deserve the best, a $25,000 credit because the venue loves my style. Thorin saw the post and shook his head. Nimra, you are too good for them. You know that, right? I whispered to him. I just want one day where we are all happy. How naive I was to think that. The day of the wedding arrived, and with it came a storm. Not just the one in the sky, but the one brewing inside that estate. If stories like this matter to you, stories about quiet people finally standing up for themselves, please like this video or subscribe. It helps me keep telling stories like this. We arrived at the estate. Thorin had to stay behind for 20 minutes to take an emergency call from an international distributor. So I walked in alone. I was wearing a simple, elegant white silk gown. Not a bridal white, but soft cream. I felt nervous. I felt small. I felt like the universe had forgotten about me. My mother met me at the door. Her face fell. Nimra, you look fine, but there's a problem. Cashin's CEO decided to come at the last minute. We are over capacity in the ballroom. Okay, I said. So where do I sit? She pointed toward the terrace. It was outside. It was raining. There were a few plastic folding chairs set up under a leaking canvas tent near the kitchen. You're joking, I said, my voice trembling. Honey, be reasonable, my father said, appearing behind her. Cashin's career depends on these people. Just stay out here until the toasts are over. We'll bring you a plate of leftovers. I stood under that leaking tent for an hour. The servers bumped into me. The rain soaked the hem of my dress. I shivered. My silk gown clung to my skin. I could feel my dignity slipping away like water through my fingers. Then Zephyra walked out. She looked radiant like the sun shining, but her eyes were cold, sharp, and full of hate. Nimra, what are you doing? You're blocking the service path, she snapped. I'm sitting where Mom told me to sit, Zephyra, in the mud. Don't be dramatic. You're lucky you're even here. Honestly, Cashin was worried Thorin would start talking about fertilizer to the CEO and ruin his promotion. She looked at my dress. Is that silk? It's a bit much for a farm girl, don't you think? Before I could answer, she tripped. But I knew it was no accident. The full glass of Cabernet in her hand didn't just spill. She flung it. It coated my chest, my stomach, and my dignity in deep red. The silk drank up the wine like a thirsty sponge. Oh no, she mocked, not a hint of remorse in her voice. I guess you really can't go inside now. You look like a mess. Security, can you escort this woman to the parking lot? She's causing a disturbance. I froze, my face burning, my dress ruined, and my parents standing there, looking helpless or maybe happy. It was hard to tell. My hands were trembling. I could feel the mud on my shoes. I could feel my pride splashing into the rain around me. And yet I noticed something. From the corner of my eye, I saw the black SUV that belonged to Thorin pulling up. I felt a flicker of hope. Not the fake kind of hope that Zephyra thrived on, not the look how perfect my life is, hope that my parents liked, but real hope. The kind that comes from knowing someone who truly sees you as coming. My parents were standing behind the glass doors, watching everything happen. They didn't move. They didn't say a single word. They didn't even look worried. They just turned around and went back to their champagne, acting like nothing had happened. I started walking toward the gravel path outside. My vision was blurry from crying, and the tears were falling down my cheeks. My dress was wet from the rain, and red wine had spilled all over it. I felt small and helpless. I didn't know what to do. Suddenly, I heard the loud engine of Thorin's big SUV. He drove up and got out. He looked amazing, like a hero from a movie, wearing a dark gray suit that fit him perfectly. His hair was neat, and he had that serious, strong look that always made people listen to him. When he saw me, my wet hair, my wine-stained dress, his face changed. It went from calm to angry very quickly. His eyes were full of worry, but also of a kind of power that made people afraid. Nimra, what happened? He asked. His voice was sharp but worried. I tried to speak, but no words came out. I could only point toward the ballroom, hoping he would understand. Thorin didn't wait for me to explain. He grabbed my hand and started walking fast toward the main entrance. He was strong, and his hand held mine like I couldn't get away. The security guard tried to stop him. Sir, the guests on the terrace are. Move, Thorin said. It wasn't a normal shout. It was a command, a voice that didn't ask. The guard looked at Thorin, saw the seriousness in his eyes, and stepped aside without arguing. We rushed into the ballroom. The timing was perfect. Cashin, my brother-in-law, was in the middle of giving a toast. He was talking about how important it is to be successful and how knowing the right people in high society is necessary. He smiled like everything was perfect. The moment we entered, the room went completely silent. No music. No chatter. No clinking glasses. Just silence. Zephyra gasped. Nimra, I told you to leave. My mother rushed over too. Thorin, please. You're making a scene. You're going to ruin Cashin's big night. But then, someone else started walking toward us. It was an older man wearing a navy blue suit. Everyone froze when they saw him. He was the CEO of Agro Global. The big boss, the most powerful man Cashin was always afraid of. Thorin? The CEO asked, sounding surprised. I've been calling your office for a week. I didn't know you were attending this event. You could hear a pin drop. Cashin looked like he was about to pass out. His face turned pale. Everyone in the room was staring. I'm not attending, Thorin said loudly, his voice strong and echoing in the ballroom. I came here to support my wife's family, but it seems my wife's family thinks she belongs out in the rain and that I'm just some farm worker who might embarrass them. Cashin stepped forward, sweating. Sir, Mr. Jackson, there's been a huge misunderstanding. Nimra, honey, why didn't you say something? The CEO asked, looking at me. I took a deep breath and stepped forward. Say what, Cashin? I asked, my voice shaking a little but getting stronger. Wine was still dripping from my dress. That the $25,000 that saved your wedding came from my poor husband's pocket. That the research papers you used to get your promotion were actually written by me, I said. The CEO's eyebrows shot up in surprise. He looked at Cashin. Cashin stammered. I told the board it was mine. I didn't. No, Thorin said firmly. It was theft. And the $40,000 you've been taking from the Agro Global Logistics Fund to pay for this fancy wedding? That's theft too. Zephyra screamed. That's a lie. My husband is a success. He works hard. He is perfect. Thorin opened his jacket and pulled out a folder. It was the audit report he had received on the car ride over. He handed it to the CEO. I was going to wait until Monday to sign the merger between my company and yours, Thorin said, his voice loud and strong. But seeing how your VPs treat my wife, I'm taking my business somewhere else. And Cashin, don't bother coming to the office Monday. Security will pack your things and put them outside. My father tried to grab Thorin's arm. Son, let's talk about this. We're family. Thorin looked at him like he was holding trash. The family sits together at the table, Thorin said. Galen, they don't put their daughter in the mud. Nimra, let's go. We walked out together. As we reached the car, I heard the music stop. The caterers were announcing that the final payment for the wedding had been canceled. Without the $25,000 I had sent, the contract for the wedding was no longer valid. The lights went out. Chloe's wedding was ruined. The party was over. But something happened that I didn't expect. 2 days later, my mother came to our real house, the estate with glass walls and a private lake. She didn't come to say sorry. She came with a bill. Since you ruined Chloe's life, she said, looking at our home with greedy eyes, the least you can do is pay off the debt Cashin left us with. If you don't, I'll tell the press that Thorin Jackson is a mean person who hurts his own family for fun. I looked at her. I didn't feel angry anymore. I just felt nothing. Go ahead, Mom, I said calmly. Call them. But you should know something. I recorded the whole wine incident on the terrace. And Thorin owns the security cameras at that place. If you call the press, everyone will see a mother who watched her daughter get hurt and then asked for money, not a mean mogul. She turned pale. She didn't say a word. She just left. I haven't heard from her since that day. Chloe and Cashin are living in my parents' basement now. Cashin is facing a private lawsuit for stealing money, and Chloe is selling her fancy wedding gifts on eBay to pay for his lawyer. Thorin and we're back in the lab. We're back in the soil, planting and growing. We mix the dirt, we plant seeds, we water them, and we watch things grow. We love it. Because at the end of the day, you can't grow anything beautiful in a place built on lies. If the soil is bad, nothing can grow. But when the soil is good and you care for it, everything can bloom and be strong. And that is how we learned that truth is stronger than lies, love is stronger than greed, and working hard together is better than pretending to be someone you're not. Thorin and I will keep planting, keep growing, and keep making the world beautiful, one seed at a time.